This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
I want to tell you a little lumdus on the Parsha. Just a little bit, just for a couple minutes. At the end of the Parsha, this week's Parsha, the pasuk says, Es brisi hefar. Es brisi hefar. In Parak Yud Zayin, pasuk Yadalet. It says, V'arel zachar asher lo yimal es besara lasoi, v'nichur sahanefesh ahi me'ameha es brisi hefar. The Gemara in Sanhedrin on Daf Nun Tes says, what do these words as brisi hefar come to include? The Gemara says, L'rabbis b'nei keturah, to include the children of Keturah. That not only do the descendants of Avraham Avinu have to do Milah, but the descendants of Keturah have to do Milah. Now Rashi learns that just means the 6 children of Keturah are biblically obligated to do Bris Milah. Comes along the Rambam, and the Rambam says no.
Who is Keturah?
Keturah was one of Abraham's wives. According to some, it was Hagar. Says the Rambam, who are the Bnei, that not only the 6 children of Keturah have to do Milah, but all the future descendants of Keturah have to do Milah. So in other words, if you meet a guy on the street, you say, ID please, and he takes out his ID, and on the driver's license it says, proud descendant of Keturah, you tell him, you're missing something. And that is, he needs to do Bris Milah. And therefore the Rambam paskins that since nowadays we don't know who's an Arab, we don't know one Arab from the next. We know the Bnei Keturah from the Bnei Yishmael or the Bnei Hagar. Therefore the Rambam says, all the Yishmaelim Bizman Hazeh are mechuyev to do Bris Milah, Midai Raisa, because maybe they are the Bnei Keturah. That I'm not going to get into right now. But the Rambam paskins that Bizman Hazeh, the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim Parak Yud Halacha Ches, the Rambam paskins Bizman Hazeh, the Bnei Keturah are chayiv in Milah. All the Yishmaelim are chayiv in Milah. Why? Maybe they are Bnei Keturah. Okay, so listen to this. So comes along the Shagas Aryeh, and the Shagas Aryeh says, wait a second, right? We had in the Daf Yomi pretty recently. The Gemara in Masechta Brachas Daf Chav Ches tells us about a man by the name of Yehuda who is a Ger Amoni, came into the Beis Medrash, and he wants to know, can I marry into Klal Yisrael? So what did Ram Gamliel say? No, of course not. You're from Amon, lo yavai Amoni b'kal Hashem. What did Rabbi Yeshua say? You're mutter. So why? Ba Sancherev Ubilbel Kala Umay. Sancherev, we know historically, Sancherev came, he mixed up all the nations of the world. So even if a guy thinks he's from Ammon, we say, you're not from Ammon, you're from the Roiv. And the Roiv Goyim, you're probably either Chinese, Indian, Italian, Mexican, but it's a very small percent that you're from Ammon, and therefore we say you're allowed to marry into the Kal. And not only that, Bizman Hazeh, are you allowed to marry a Mayavi? Yes. Are you allowed to marry a Mitzri? Yes. Are you allowed to marry... What?
More than 10 generations already.
Yeah, but besides that, an Ammoni and Mayavi, there's no heter of 10 generations. Bizman Hazeh, you're allowed to marry all of these Umais. Why? Because we assume that you're from the Roiv. You're not an Ammoni, you're not a Mayavi, you're not an Adoni, you're not a Mitzri. What are you? You're Stamagoy. You're an Italian, you're a Mexican, you're from the Roiv.
How do you know Jews are not from the Roiv?
What?
Present day Jews.
The Jews maintain their identity. But the Bas Sancherev ubilbal kala umay. So ask the Shagas Aryeh, Bas Sancherev bilbal kala umay. So why is the Rambam saying that Yishmaelim and the Bnei Keturah are chayiv in Milah? Why are they chayiv in Milah? Bas Sancherev ubilbal kala umay. This guy is not a Bnei Keturah-nik. He's not a Yishmael-nik. He's Stamagoy.
You consider Yishmael a Uma?
Whether whether they have a definition of a Malchus or not. They never had ancestral land, right? But nevertheless, the same way, Rabbi said, the Shagas Aryeh asked, the same way you're allowed to marry into Ammon, you're allowed to marry into Mayav, you're allowed to marry into Edom, you're allowed to marry into the Mitzrayim, because we say you're not from that lineage, you're from the Roiv. So why would we require any Arab, any Bnei Keturah to do Milah? Why don't we tell him the same thing? You are from the Roiv. You're not a Yishmaeli. You're not a Bnei Keturah. Okay, that's the famous question of the Shagas Aryeh, Siman Mem Tes.
And the answer
comes along the Noid of Yehuda. Listen to this. There's a few more minutes. Noid of Yehuda comes and says, Noid of Yehuda is in a tshuva in Even Ha'ezer, Simon Membeis. And Noah Judah says like this. Wait a second. The din of Roiv. Where do we learn Roiv out from? Different sources. We'll keep it simple, right? Achrei Rabim Lahatos. Who is that pasuk said to? Jews. The din of Roiv only applies to Jews. Doesn't apply to Goyim. So therefore, if we...
must not hold that way.
What? 1 second. So if a guy comes, if an Ammoni comes and says, I want to marry, so what do we say to him? I'm a Jew. I'm the one who wants to marry you. I'm entitled to use Roiv. I could say you're not from Ammon. A Mayavi comes to marry us. I could say I'm a Yid. I'm entitled to say you're not an Mayavi. You're not an Edom. You're not a Mitzri. Because I'm a Jew and I have Roiv. But a B'nai Keturanik who comes to us and we say, he flashes the card, proud member of the B'nai Keturah. So what does he say? Why do I have to do Milah? I'm from the Roiv. I'm probably not a B'nai Keturanik. I'm probably either Chinese, Mexican, Jamaican, right? Trinidad. So we say, that's very nice. You have a lumdus of Roiv, but you're a guy. Goyim don't have a din Roiv. So if Goyim don't have a din Roiv, you have to be chayshesh for the miyot that you are a B'nai Keturanik. And if you have to be chayshesh for the miyot that you are B'nai Keturah, you have to do milah. The heter of Roiv is only given to Klal Yisrael, says the Noda B'Yehuda. It's not given to the Ummah Yisrael. It's not given to Goyim. So if we have somebody that is a B'nai Keturanik, he's not entitled to say, whoa, Bas Sancherev u'Bilbo Kala Ummais. Sancherev mixed me into the big melting pot, and I'm probably not a B'nai Keturanik. No, he can't say that. Why? Because Roiv is a din given to Klal Yisrael.
Do we hold that way?
That's what the Noda B'Yehuda says.
Obviously doesn't hold that way. Achrei Rabim Lahatos, he says, doesn't apply.
Okay, so we'll see. They would come out according to that, if a guy, he had Iver Min Achai, yeah? And it got mixed into the Roiv. So we could eat it, and he couldn't eat it, according to this. We could follow the Roiv, he couldn't follow the Roiv. Comes along the Minchas Chinuch, and the Minchas Chinuch says, in this week's Parshas Lecha, Mitzvah Beis, Oisir Beis, he says, no. Shagis Aryeh still has a good question. What's the question of Shagis Aryeh? The Shagis Aryeh's question is like this. Miman of Shach. Do Goyim have a Roiv? Or Goyim don't have a Roiv? If Goyim have a Roiv, then the B'nai Keturah should not be required to do Milah, because we should say they probably come from the majority. And if they don't have a Roiv, guess what? Then every single guy should be mechoyev in bris milah, because maybe they're from B'nai Keturah. What are they going to say? No, they're from the Roiv? Goyim are not allowed to use Roiv. There's no din Roiv by Goyim. So the Minchas Chinuch says the Shagis Aryeh still has a good question. And the question is, do Goyim have Roiv or do Goyim not have Roiv? If Goyim have Roiv, then all Goyim should be pater. B'nai Yishmael and B'nai Keturah. And if Goyim don't have Roiv, then all Goyim should be chayiv. Imagine that, right? The kasha is, every guy, you meet a guy on the street, say, by the way, what nation do you come from? He said, don't worry, I'm Italian. Italian. But maybe you're B'nai Keturanik. He says, let me check the Gallup polls. What are the chances that I'm a B'nai Keturanik? So we check the polls. 1 out of 1 billion. You say it doesn't matter 1 out of 1 billion. That's enough to say you are mechuyev in milah midayraisa. So it comes out, very interesting question from this week's Parsha. Yeah, hear the kasha? A very halacha l'maisa, you could ask the following question. Since, according to the Rambam, B'nai Keturah are chayiv in milah midayraisa, why isn't every guy obligated to circumcise himself? Because he might be a B'nai Keturanik. So you say, what do you mean? What are the chances of that? What do you mean the chances?
They don't hold for the Rambam anyway. The Goyim don't hold from that. They have the Shiva Mitzvah 9 yard. That's all they're going to hold for. They're not going to do this halakha.
What about the Noachide Goyim? What do you know? The Goyim that follow the Noachide laws, they may have to learn this machlokes Shagis Aryeh and Noda B'Yehuda. But that may get into the last year of whether Goyim are allowed to learn Torah. Okay.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.